Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of our First Person Interview, a weekly production of PressProsMagazine.com, sponsored by the Buckeye Insurance Group in Piqua and the Coverman Dickerson Agency, representing Buckeye in Troy, Piqua, and Covington. First opportunity this year to talk with the head coach of the Troy Trojans, Steve Nolan. Off to a great start this year, 5-1 as we tape this during Piqua Week. Big week for you, and certainly a big game Friday night, but the success you've had this year, Coach, certainly, and your kids have had, I should say, a lot more than just one football game. You guys have been off to a great start.
Well, we did get off to a good start by beating CJ and kind of ran into a buzzsaw down in Middletown, and we weren't quite ready for that. And, you know, it's hard when you come out of the gate with a pretty young team and go from CJ to Middletown. So, but we learned a lot from that and moved on from that point on. So since then we've been consistent on execution on both sides of the ball, and we play with a degree of physicalness. So
the fact of the matter is, if you look at, and a lot of people will say, well, the sudden success of the Troy Trojans, you and I know differently because we've done interviews for a couple of years, but for the fact of a call here or there, or close play here or there, the last couple of years, you've been in a lot of close football. This program has been in a lot of close football games that really don't belie the kind of success that you've had this year.
Well, and that's it in a nutshell. A lot of these kids that are on this year's team played last year and got their feet wet as sophomores, and our seniors, that was their second year. We got a small nucleus of seniors that are on the field, but a great nucleus overall. So, you know, it's just those type of things that took place for us early last year. And we had some big wins and some ones we shouldn't have lost, and some close ones and that type of thing. So that's been that way the last couple of years. But this year we've got over the hump a little bit, but each week brings a new problem.
Steve Nolan, coach of the Troy Trojans, our guest this week on First Person. I don't know that people really talk enough about this. I try to. The fun that kids have playing the game, especially when you're winning, when a plan comes together, as people are popular to say right now. And, you know, it's fun for the kids, but it's also rewarding for the coaches, too. They teach math and English at Troy as well, but you teach football, and it's the same thing when you see the light come on for kids and they have success, isn't it?
It really is, but it all comes back to, you know, how much they put into it. It's just like anything in education. If you really give your heart and give your soul and work very hard, you're going to learn. And if you don't learn, you'll learn from your mistakes, and you can repeat it and get it done. And our kids have been able to do that, you know, and they've put a lot into it, and right at this point they're getting a lot out of it. Not to say the last couple of years we didn't do the same thing, but, you know, we're a little more mature, a little more experienced, and so the things that we teach them sinks in a little bit better, and it's a familiarity with the things we teach.
We're going to take this break and come back and talk about some of the individual elements of the 2010 Troy Trojans with Steve Nolan, right after this word from the Coverman Dickerson Agency, representing Buckeye Insurance in Troy, Piqua, and Covington.
The Coverman Dickerson Agency, with offices in Troy, Piqua, and Covington, is pleased to be the sponsoring Buckeye Insurance Group agent for this first-person interview. For farm, auto, and homeowner insurance, Coverman Dickerson is one of the area's fastest-growing Buckeye providers, with a history of service and competitive rates. And we're also an outstanding source of coverage for families with young drivers. For farm, auto, and home policies, call the Coverman Dickerson Agency, proud to represent Buckeye Insurance Group.
Once again, we welcome you back to this week's first-person interview with Steve Nolan, the coach of the Troy Trojans. 5-1 again, as I mentioned, we tape this at this juncture of the season. I know that a lot of things have gone well for you, and I know there's a lot of individual parts about this football team that you feel very good about. I'm going to bring up one that you mentioned to me confidently at the beginning of the season. Cody May is your quarterback, and I'm going to guess that Cody's done nothing to disappoint you or get into the fact of your confidence in him at that time.
Well, we made that decision. It was a tough decision at that time, but we had another person, and he's still our backup and playing for that spot. He's also our starter from last year at strong safety. So going through all of that, we had to make that decision, and Cody's done everything that we've asked, and we expect that to continue each week. He doesn't do anything to hurt the ball club, but whatever he does, it is progression when he reads in his passing game, and how he runs the offense has been very good for us. He's had 6 games without interception, and, you know, we actually, believe it or not, are throwing a little bit more, even though numbers don't bear that out because we've been ahead lately. We don't need to do that, but at the same time, we're throwing the ball more effectively, and he's a part of that.
We would have to talk about Marcus Foster, for the impact that he's made for you on both sides of the ball. And I know you like, he's one of those kids that we talked about last year coming up that's athletic, competitive, loves to compete. Talk about him for a moment.
And that showed every game for us with him, except for he was sick at the Middletown game, was not able to play any defense, and even offensively was not himself. And he's, since that ball game, has really put on quite a show as far as on both sides of the ball. But you know, he also knows he's successful based on the other guy on the other side, and Isaiah Williams, and they both block and catch passes. They do things for each other, and they compete for each other. And that's part of what we try to teach here is, you know, what a team's about, and there's not one real star, and we can go up and down. You know, not to mention the offensive line that is back from last year, and the defense who's played outstanding. So we've got all parts of the game that we try to push. But you know, we can say that after being 5-1. You know, hopefully we say that at the end of the season, because we got to play this game coming up against Pickle, which is by far going to be our biggest test of the year.
You mentioned defense a minute ago. You've been proud of this group defensively for a couple of years because they do have speed, they're athletic, they get to the football, they play the way you like to see the game played.
Yeah, and we're physical. We're pretty smart defensively, you know, and that's the key. And sometimes you can be as sound as possible and be out-athleted too. And, you know, that quarterback in Middletown sometimes, I mean, he was a great player, and even though he's playing running back now for him, he's, you know, sometimes we just a step off, but we've gotten better at those kind of angles. But again, Pickle coming up brings a new problem with an outstanding quarterback, outstanding running backs, outstanding receivers, and just a solid offensive team. So we've got to be very sound, but we also have to be able to play with their athletes.
Steve, you talked about your seniors a minute ago in terms of a good group, not the biggest group of seniors that you've had before. I know a couple of them, Nate Fair, since he was this big, but I know you got a lot of other kids like Nate that really bring a lot of leadership to your program.
Yeah, we do. And, you know, in our offensive line, we've got Lee Blackford's been a 3-year starter, and of course Kyle Tarando, free safety, also a 3-year starter, and Brad Armstrong started last year at strong safety, and Nate, of course, and then Ryan O'Neal came back from injuries. Those guys, and then we have our linebacking core that would started all last year is back, and you know that experience again helps us. We're proud of all that, but you know each week's a different week. Hopefully we can say that after this week.
Great to see so much air of that red and gray flag this year standing out 5-1. Congratulations again. You deserve it. You guys have worked hard.
All right, thanks.
Steve Nolan, our guest this week on First Person, again a production of PressProsMagazine.com, sponsored by the Buckeye Insurance Group in Piqua and the Coverman Dickerson Agency representing Buckeye and Troy, Piqua, and Covington. Join us again next week for another edition of First Person. For our sponsors and Coach Nolan, until then, thanks for watching PressProsMagazine.com.
If you are looking for quality insurance protection from a reliable company, sold by professionals, in communities like yours, that's what you'll get from Buckeye Insurance Group.
Buckeye Insurance Group, insuring the heartland.
To find your local Buckeye agent, visit buckeye-ins.com. Buckeye Insurance Group, insuring the heartland.
Insuring the heartland.